If you recall, when I was harvesting my butternut squash, there were some that was already split from too much rain, and some that has some damaged parts, and some that is not even ripe, but it's already damaged. This one is ripe, but it's starting to have some growth on it, so I'm gonna take care of these because I'm not gonna be able to store them as such. I also have some old delicata winter squash that I just wanted to show you. This is from last year, so this is over a year old. Still good. They store really well. If they're not damaged, the winter squash will store for a year at least. So I'm gonna deal with these as well, use them up. So how do we want to process this today? It all depends on what you want to use these for. Are they gonna be cooked into various dishes? Do you have space in your freezer? Or like I do, it's gonna be all cooked into just one thing, which is gonna be butternut squash soup. I do have space in my freezer, so therefore I'm not gonna be pressure canning the soup. I'm gonna just cook them and portion them out into freezer containers. So the first thing I'm gonna do, because of that, I will peel some of it where it's damaged, but I'm gonna leave the other peel on, and I'm gonna gut them, and I'm gonna bake them in the oven on a baking sheet to kind of bring out more of their sweetness, especially that one that's not really ripe, and that way my final soup will be better tasting. So I'm gonna just cut the top off, and then what you want to do is cut it where the curve ends. And this part will have seeds in it, but you can see how it's not very ripe, right? And I'm gonna scoop out the seeds. You can actually save the seeds from this if you want, or roast the seeds, but I'm gonna throw these out because I have bigger squashes that I'm gonna use for seed saving. And then the neck part is solid, so in this case all I'm gonna do is peel the bad parts off. I just don't want to cook it with that. So this part I'm gonna peel, but the rest I'm gonna leave on. And then scoop these out with a spoon. Just like that. So let me show you one that's more ripe. This one is the ripest, just to see the color difference. See, that's a ripe one versus this one is still green, but you can still eat that, obviously. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean these and come back when I'm ready to prepare them for the roasting part. To prepare these for roasting, I have a parchment paper lined baking sheet. I cleaned all of my squash, and as I said earlier, I peeled some of it, but most of it I left the peel on. And to roast it a little nicer than just like this, I always put some oil on it. In this case, I'm just going to use avocado oil. This will prevent them from drying out too much in the roasting process, and they're going to roast faster because the oil heats up more than just a wet surface, right? So they're gonna be roasting much better. And then I would just spread the oil all over the place. Again, this is gonna prevent them from drying out. Make sure you cover all the surfaces. And it's optional that you put some salt on it as well. Salt and even pepper to flavor them as they go. My delicata is not gonna give me a lot of flesh, so I'm gonna put this in a separate tray and take them out earlier. I just hate to throw out things, so I'm gonna use these up. I'm gonna go ahead and salt these because I'm gonna cook them into soup anyway, so might as well flavor them. I'm going to roast these in the oven on 350 degrees. It's probably gonna take at least an hour, but I'll let you know when it's done how long it took. You want to roast it until it's totally soft, like even the skin is soft. I'll show you when it's ready. I have baked my butternut squash for an hour on 350. As you can see, a lot of liquids are in here that I want to save for my soup. But I need to cool this off before I can start processing them. Now, you don't have to take the skin off. It's actually probably cooked enough for you to be able to blend it into the soup, but I'm gonna take the skin off. So once these are cool, I'm gonna just scrape them out of their skin. But I'm gonna have to wait for these to cool off a little bit. I want to save the liquids. I don't want that to soak into the skin because I'm not saving the skin. I already got at the delicata squash, which was not much, but it still gave me about half a cup of pulp, which is gonna add taste to my soup as well. So let me save the majority of the liquid. And we'll come back and scoop these out, but I can start cooking the other parts to the soup. I'm gonna start sauteing some onions. And I already chopped my onion, a whole large onion for this particular dish. And I'm gonna use butter to saute them. However, if you're gonna be canning this, pressure canning this, I probably would not use butter. I don't like to can anything dairy. So then use some kind of avocado oil or some other fat. So I'm gonna put in about a couple of tablespoons of butter. Put my onion in here. pinch of salt. While my onion is sauteing, I'm going to keep an eye on that. We don't want to brown it, just saute it enough so it's nice and sweet. While that's doing that, I'm going to scoop out my squash pulp. While my onion is sauteing nice and slow, I'm going to scoop out the flesh of my squash. And you might be asking, well, why didn't you just peel it and roast it that way? I did not peel them because I believe that if you roast it in the skin, it stays moist. Also, it gives more flavor. That's why I leave the skin on to begin with. So yes, this is a little bit more work, but what else I'm gonna do? There you go. It can go pretty fast. So I'll be back when I have finished with my onion and I'm done with all my pulps. So my onions are done. I am done peeling my squashes. Actually, when they're more ripe, it's easier to peel them. And this is what I got out of it, the peels. So I have about 5 cups of flesh. So I'm probably gonna make at least double as much soup. At this point, when my onion is done, I'm gonna start putting my spices in so they can bloom. A teaspoon of ginger powder, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. Remember, I'm making a big batch here, and you can do more or less based on your taste. Ground black pepper, and it's optional, but I love cardamom, so I'm gonna put in about 2 teaspoons, and I'm gonna make this with honey. Again, that's optional to make it sweet. I would say, if I can get it out, a tablespoon of honey. I might have to wash this out to get the honey out. I'm gonna dump in my squash. In another pot. And for the liquid, you want to use vegetable broth, or do what I do, some vegetable powder. I'm going to turn up the heat high. I'm going to start with about 4 cups of water, only because that's pretty much all I can fit in here. As I find some skin, I'll take that out. Again, you don't have to. I'm gonna start by putting a tablespoon of vegetable broth powder. I'll taste it and see how it is later. I'm trying to melt the honey. Just the bottom of the jar. I'm gonna go ahead and cover this and cook it for about 20 minutes because I want all the flavors to marry. After cooking for 20 minutes, I'm gonna go ahead and blend it. If you're planning to pressure can this, make sure it's not too thick. So you may have to add some more vegetable broth to make it thinner. It is not recommended that you pressure can thick liquids. Now if you're not gonna can this, like I'm not gonna, I like to add some cream. For this amount I'm probably gonna put about a cup. Kind of go by the color. So this will be on the thick side. Again, I could add more vegetable broth if I needed to. It's perfect. So I'm gonna let this cool off a little bit, but I'm gonna portion this out for the freezer. I'm gonna go ahead and dish out something for right now to eat. Doesn't that look delicious? It cooled off enough so I can portion these out now for the freezer. I already had a portion and it was fabulous. So each of these containers can hold 4 cups, which is 2 servings. So I'm gonna freeze these 2 and this goes to the fridge and I'll eat this tomorrow. One thing I forgot to mention is that how do you decide whether you wanna pressure can this or freeze it? Well, one of the factors is how soon you're gonna be eating these. In the freezer, this will be good for 6 months. Anything cooked that you freeze, it's good about 6 months. However, if you can it properly, again, make it thinner and you can it, pressure can it that way, then it can last forever, essentially, as long as that container is not damaged, that you can again. This will be gone in a couple of months, guaranteed. So which is not too bad, not too much space that it's going to take up in my freezer. See you next time.